There are two world-class rivers that run through the Houghton Lake area, the AuSable and the Muskegon. Today we'll take a short trip down the AuSable. The AuSable is a major tributary to Lake Huron. It drains a north-south basin that includes 1,932 square miles in north-central Lower Michigan. The basin is approximately 90 miles long and 10 to 30 miles wide. The river basin is partially within the Huron National Forest and includes Montmorency, Crawford, Oscoda, Alcona, Roscommon, Ogama, and Iosco counties.
Well, what a gorgeous day we've got. The sun is still shining bright. Of course, on a day like today, it's not hard to find things to do, but we're going to give you one anyway. We're going to be doing a little bit of canoeing. There's all kinds of water sports up here in the Houghton Lake area, and this is one of my favorite. We've come down, we're on the AuSable River just outside of Roscommon right now. We're at Campbell's Canoe Livery, and we're going to be going out on the river. You know, a lot of times we've taken you on the AuSable, and a lot of people see it as a bigger river, but up in this area, it's actually quite small and very shallow, so it should be an interesting trip down the river. We'll get into some good sights and have a good time. Let's get started.
It was time to meet our guide for this river trip, Nancy Quinlan, former owner of Campbell's Canoe Livery. As we took a leisurely trip down the river, Nancy explained what to expect if you took a family trip.
Well, actually, a person could canoe from Roscommon all the way to Lake Huron if they wanted to. And that would take about a 6-day trip. But the typical day trip, we have an hour-and-a-half trip that's about 6 miles on the river. Then a 10-mile trip that's about 2.5 to 3 hours on the river, and then a 4.5-hour trip that's 18 miles on the river. And those are just average times it takes on the river. You know, some people take longer and some go faster. A lot of families go canoeing, and you know, with little ones like my niece here, they might take a shorter trip like she did earlier today, maybe only an hour-and-a-half trip. We get a lot of Boy Scout troops or church groups that might want to go canoe for 4 hours in the day, and then camp at a campground part way down, and then the next day get up and canoe another 4 hours. Yeah, that's a nice little trip, really. That 4-hour trip is on the Mason track, it's called. It's all wild and wilderness. What about that? Yep, there's no building on it. It's federally protected by the government, so that there is no building on it. It's all very natural. The fishing on that area is really prime fishing. It's all catch and release, flies only. There's a lot of trout in here. So they say that the river, the DNR says the river flows about, 4 miles an hour is what they say. I don't know how they judge that, but that's what they say. It's, there's no white waters. It's very casual, so very good for little tykes to go on this part of the river without any problems whatsoever. And some people want to stop and picnic, or they might want to swim. They might want to stop and take a break and stretch their feet. And there's state land along the way that they can do that on, public landings that they can use. And there's sandbars. Yes, there are sandbars that you can stop at. About a 3-hour float on the river in an inner tube. And it's really, it is a shallow river, so it's, Yep, that's what we say. If you tip over, stand up. We've had reported a mink, beaver, muskrat. The other day in my backyard, there was a bald eagle that landed and sat for about 15 minutes on a log right outside of my house. It was gorgeous, huge bald eagle. South branch of the AuSable actually originates in Lake St. Helen. It's a spring-fed river, so it's always flowing and always cool and always clean. And then it floats all the way to Lake Huron.
This is just one of the many canoe liveries on the water. For a complete list of all the different canoe and kayak outfitters, including specialty fly fishing outfitters, we have a link on our site.